All right, very good. It is November 13th and we're going to start our workshop. We have a couple items on we have a couple of things on the agenda. And first off, Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to have Officer Jolly and Officer Fair come forward. Yeah, that's fine.
Watch steps, right? There you
I
go.
wanted to recognize these two officers for a life-saving event. We always do it at our award ceremony, but sometimes that can be 6 months to close to a year later. And I think it's important that we do it right away. And then we do also recognize them with the official pins at their ceremony. But I want to tell you a little bit about what happened. Halloween, October 31st, they responded to a call for cardiac arrest, 42-year-old female in Hollingsworth Manor. Officer Jolly was the first one on scene and located her upstairs, lifeless, is what my understanding, in the bed. And he reacted very quickly, got her off the bed, got her onto the hard surface. In the meantime, his backup, Officer Farron, shows up, recognizes that this is probably an overdose, and starts administering Narcan. I believe it was about 6 minutes of doing CPR is what Officer Jolly did. And that, if any of you have ever had to do that, know that that's an extremely long time, causes a lot of fatigue, not to mention just the stressful situation. They knew what they were in for. So just wanted to recognize them. Last call was that she was alive and receiving treatment. So we just want to thank them for their efforts and their heroism on that day. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll get a nice photograph of you three. Come on back up a little bit. Chief, get in the
Well, you
picture.
guys stand up.
We're going to stand up. We're right here, all smiles behind these guys.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
Since I see some of them here, Officer Strong, Officer Devine, and also Justin Beamer, all were recognized last night at the Cecil County First Responder Appreciation Dinner. So just a shout out to them for the great work they're doing.
Very good. And Chief, while you had the floor, of course, very appreciative of the grant that the team got. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we're excited about that. We're hoping, so we're gonna get a part-time crime analyst, and we're also going to start a juvenile program. And we're getting another tool that hopefully will help us get some data from the cars and things. So we're real excited about that. I don't know if he's in here. Lieutenant Finch was our grant writer on that, and it was fully funded.
Very good.
We're excited.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lou, we have a couple of resolutions we want to talk about. Do we want to bring Kimberly on? Kimberly, I guess you are on.
These are pretty complex legal agreements, so we better take it right to council.
Hey, Kimberly,
Hi, can everybody see and hear me?
we got you.
Long time no see, commissioners. How are you today? Great. So the reason that I'm here for this workshop is to discuss the introduction of two resolutions and a couple of other ancillary matters for the approval of the sports park transaction. So there are two resolutions that will be presented for approval for the board next week. This workshop is intended to kind of go through those resolutions, certainly answer any questions that anybody might have about those resolutions so that we can get those in final form for introduction and adoption as planned next week. So the first one is, do I need to share the screen, or is everybody got what they need in front of them?
Well, we have one in front of us.
Okay.
I would say that probably I'm not gonna speak for the board, but I'd say no one's probably really reviewed these yet, so if you wouldn't mind hitting on the high spots for us.
Yes, of course.
And then, we'll have them read and, digest it, and when we, introduce them next week, we'll have more
Great.
pointed questions at that point, I think. You guys feel all right with that?
Feel fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I am going to talk about resolution R8-2024.
And Kimberly, let them know what the purpose of this is too, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna go write down everything.
All
So,
right, thank you so much.
just as some background, there is plans to build a sports park complex in the town of Elkton. Specifically, this is going to be located in the South Fields District. I'm sure folks in town have seen a lot of activity going on around there, including a very aptly decorated water tower in the form of a baseball, because the sports park is going to be primarily, but not exclusively, baseball fields. So this sports park is considered a public facility in that MEDCO, which stands for, and we love acronyms in my line of work, so I will always pause and explain them to you, is the Maryland Economic Development Corporation. So MEDCO is a statewide agency. They work throughout the state in assisting municipalities or other agencies or nonprofits and to develop various projects throughout the state. I've worked with MEDCO on transactions over many, many years. They've got a great reputation on how they own, operate, and kind of manage these projects. And so MEDCO has been asked by the town to assist the town in the ownership, development, and financing of this sports park. So MEDCO will be the entity that will lease the land, and it will borrow money to build the sports park complex, and it will use the operations and the revenues from the operations to pay off the bonds over the course of the term of those bonds, which is approximately 30 years. So MEDCO is going to hire a developer to assist them with building it. That's a typical structure that they use. They're hiring a manager. You might all be familiar with Sideline, who will be contracting with an operator that is very well versed in like coordinating all these tournaments. I know I spend many a weekend at these types of tournaments, and there's companies that actually put those all together and get the teams there and help with the revenues for these types of facilities. So, when MEDCO is borrowing these monies, it's pledging on a limited basis from MEDCO the revenues to pay back their debt. And so the debt that they're using takes the form of bonds. So if anybody hears that word coming around, it's bonds, but it really works like a loan, and you're using the revenues to pay back the loan. So as those revenues come in the door, they're going to get applied to operations, they're going to get applied to debt service. And, where MEDCO has asked the town to support this project, as well as the developer has asked the town to support this project, is, the town will act as what we call a backstop in case the revenues are not sufficient to pay off the debt. So each year there's an annual debt payment. We've all got them. I certainly do for my mortgage. And while theirs is paid, while we pay ours on a monthly basis, theirs is paid kind of biannually. And so if those debt payments come up and there aren't enough revenues to operate the sports park and pay enough for the debt service, then there's a reserve fund that's going to exist from the start. That reserve fund is available to help pay the bondholders. And the town has agreed that if there is a withdrawal from that debt service reserve fund, the town will replenish the amounts that are drawn from that debt service reserve fund. So there is a couple of places that the money goes before the town is being asked to make this replenishment. In connection with that agreement, the town is entering into what's called a replenishment agreement, where Medco is agreeing with, where the town is agreeing with Medco to make these replenishment payments. So, the debt service reserve fund is, sized at approximately $5 million. It could be as high as, almost $6 million. But what could happen is the town would be required to make no payment if the revenues are sufficient. Say the revenues are $100,000 short, right? Then the town would be responsible for $100,000. If things were kind of really sideways, and the maximum amount that the town would be required to replenish each year might be as high as $5 or almost $6 million. So there is a spectrum of what the town might be asked to do. It will be directly informed by the success of the sports park and the revenues that are available to the sports park. And right now, in the financial projections that have been presented to the commissioners, the town is not projected to make any replenishment payments over the life of the bonds. And so it may very well be that revenues could be off just a slight bit. And if they are, then the town might be kicking in small amounts, but really revenues would have to be sort of substantially less than anticipated in order for the town to be in a position where it's making substantial contributions.
Can I interrupt a minute? I want to
I'm sorry.
emphasize that fiscal 26 and 27, part 28 will be covered by proceeds from the bonds as long as capitalized interest. So they won't realize payback for the debt service reserve fund until possibly 28 and thereafter.
Thank you, Louis. That's correct. So one of the additional financial protections is that they do start out with, a bucket of money that's available to pay for the interest on this debt while the project is getting built and while it's ramping up. And so the town's kind of earliest potential for having exposure would be as Louis said, in 2028 or fiscal 28. So
Kimberly,
yes.
real quickly, can you tell the board how many entities went through the pro forma?
Oh, absolutely. So there was hired a consultant. They prepare a feasibility report. They take the numbers that are provided. They're considered an expert in the field on these sports facilities, pun intended. And they vet those numbers, present a very, very, very long report about, where they think the strengths are. They compare it. They use comparables to other sports park facilities to make measurements about some of the estimates of the income. They have a pretty good sense about what the expenses might be. So it's been vetted first through this feasibility consultant. We also have, and that has been done in consultation with the developer. There has also been Mesirow, which is the underwriter. This is the firm that is helping Medco sell these bonds at hopefully the lowest interest rate possible. And there has been some positive movement over the past week, actually. And so Mesirow has also been looking at this pro forma. We at Whiteford have looked over this pro forma and the feasibility report. Now, you never want your lawyer doing math, but I am, looking at it to understand kind of where some of the exposure might be for the town. And you have also had Davenport and Company, who is the town's financial advisor. So they have been hired directly by the town. Nobody else has paid for them. Davenport's been hired by the town to also take a look at the pro forma, which is, kind of how they expect the operations to go. And so everybody at this point has kind of received all the information. Oh, and lastly, Medco has also looked at it because even though their exposure is limited to the revenues of the project, Medco does a lot of these projects. They work very, very hard and have an expertise and want to make sure that their projects are successful. So they are also looking at these numbers. So I know that's a very long answer to your question, Mayor, but there's actually a pretty substantial team that has been looking at these numbers and the feasibility report.
Yeah, I think it's important that it's more than one entity, and these are, at the end of the day, they look at these numbers, and these are pretty conservative pro formas that we're using. And I mean, we always talk about the wrong way, which is kind of the way that we should talk about it, you know, what the risks are. But the positive of everyone believes they're going to, I'm not going to say everyone, most people believe that there will be an overperformance of the pro forma. And then tell us what happens with those dollars.
Sure. So there's what we call a waterfall. And so what happens is if the project is successful, right, the money comes down the waterfall. We'll talk about in a couple of places that matter to the town. But if the money falls down to the bottom because there's been enough money to cover all of the expenses and pay back everybody that needs to be paid back, then that money will be used to actually pay down the bonds early. So they have a mechanism where if there's extra money, it starts taking down the debt. What does that do? That lowers your interest rate. You know, when you make your mortgage payment and you make an extra payment, right, then you start paying less interest. And then, you know, the higher payments start going towards principal. And so it has a snowball effect where there is the potential that the bonds could be paid off earlier than 30 years. If there is like an off year and the town is requested to, you know, make a replenishment payment, or the town doesn't receive back a repayment of special taxes, which I'll talk about in the next resolution, then if there's a later successful year, the town gets paid back whatever it's come out of pocket. And so there is an ongoing kind of flow with the funds there, where as the project performs and money is available, you know, the town will be repaid from those available monies for, you know, what's, you know, for money that it may have come out of pocket. And so even if that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the money will still come back in. So it doesn't it's not a year by year analysis.
Perfect.
Yeah. The town also has another kind of what we'll call remedy. If the town's not getting paid back as it expects and is not getting paid back quickly enough, the town has the ability to take ownership of the sportsplex. And once the Medco bonds or the Medco debt is paid off, the town would own the sports park instead of, at this point, the developer who owns the underlying land. But at that point, the bonds have been paid off. You know, if the town's been, you know, kind of having to support more than it's expected, then, you know, the town has an additional benefit there that actually it was the mayor's idea to negotiate for the benefit of the town. So I'm going to pause there because I think I've so far answered every question and described the general transaction, right? And what we're expecting to happen with the project. The resolution itself, if you're ready for me to kind of just go down the major elements of that, I can do that.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, great. So, you know, the town in this resolution, you know, kind of makes findings that this project is for a public purpose. You know, Medco wouldn't be able to do this project if it wasn't a public purpose. These projects are actually pretty common. And so, you know, the town finds, right, and that it's, you know, in the town's best interest to request Medco to issue these bonds, that it's in the town's best interest to support the issuance of these bonds, because with the town's support, the interest rate is lower and the financing is more feasible. And so the town is going to enter into this replenishment agreement, and that replenishment agreement is authorized under the charter of the town. The replenishment obligations of the town, you know, have some marginal limitations, but I think generally the full faith and credit of the town is being pledged for this replenishment obligation. So there is a cap. As I mentioned, there's like a couple of limits on this. So there is a cap. And so, if the town gets paid back, just like any kind of, you borrow, you pay back, like your home equity line, you borrow, you pay back, you borrow, you pay back, right? If you're paid back, like the town has a cap where it doesn't get exceeded if it's not getting paid back. That cap is based on the town's properties and assessed values and is approximately $26.6 million. And that will get adjusted as the town's assessed values increase. And then once the cap is reached, the town can continue to support the sports park if it so chooses, because, there might be things that the town wants to do. It may want to, pay off the bonds and spread it out. It may want to refinance them or ask Medco to refinance them so that they can lower the payments. Like, there's lots of things that can be done to problem solve. If the replenishment cap does get reached, then the town would, not be obligated with its full faith and credit to make those payments, but it has, said that it would present that in its budget process. And so if it decides to appropriate for those payments, it can make them. If it doesn't, then there's nothing that anybody can require the town to do. So that's the replenishment agreement. What we have done is we've been in the process of negotiating that. It is in the close to final condition. We believe that very soon all business issues are resolved. If not already, we just may get some feedback from the rating agencies, which I'll talk about in a second. And then it authorizes the mayor to kind of finalize the document, as long as there aren't any changes that are beyond the parameters that's described in this resolution. Then, as is typical for the resolutions that we do, similar with the resolution that we did for the Southfield special tax bonds, then the mayor has the ability to, sign the documents, even if there's little tweaks, as long as it falls within the authorization here. And then that keeps, the town out of a back and forth authorization process that's unwieldy, for these types of transactions. So that is the replenishment agreement. There's also something I mentioned, which is the reimbursement agreement, where the developer has agreed, as I mentioned, that if the town comes out of pocket for more than $3 million and it's not been repaid for more than 3 years, then the town has the opportunity to acquire the title to the sportsplex and will own it once the Medco bonds are paid off. So that is the, and then the last item that this resolution covers is, because Medco is a governmental entity and the town is a governmental entity, this just came up where, they might have process agreements between each other. Like, we want to get notices from Medco. The town wants to be able to look at the budgets. The town wants to have a say in some of the things that, as it relates to the project, the town's not required to do that. There's nothing here that the town is required to do in the ownership and operations. This is just to give the town more visibility, because the town is, as you know, supporting the project. So those are the 3 big pieces that this resolution R8 -2024 covers. And I will pause there for questions, and then we'll talk about the contribution agreement.
Pamela, you mentioned last meeting that if things were to go negative, which I'm hoping that it doesn't, that monies would be paid back to the contractor. You remember making a statement about a contractor?
Oh, yes. So there are a couple of other protections. Thank you for raising those, because remember, my job is to, and the town commissioners have been focused on how to minimize the risk as much as possible. So one of the things that's happened is there is an extremely, I would say it's out of market to the town's benefit. I have not typically seen a contractor sign on to this type of risk, but the contractor has agreed that it is going to fix the price for the completion of the project, which is below what's being borrowed. And even if something comes up that's unexpected, the developer might have more time to finish the construction, but it won't be able to increase the price of the construction. And that is not typical and very favorable for the town. So that's one of the pieces of it. The other pieces, the operator, the person who's like in charge of bringing in all of the sports teams and the revenues and things like that. If their operations aren't enough to pay all the bills, then their management fee is at risk. So in a way, they get paid less.
Before you go any further, the contractor is Medco, right?
No, so Medco's going to be the owner. The Medco's going to hire Sideline to kind of manage stuff, even though Medco does, do this and understand it and will be involved all along the way. But it's a lot to do on a day-to-day.
I just wanted clarity on that because I was under the impression that Medco was the contractor. So that's all I needed to really just get, because it was understanding that they were the contractor. I misunderstood it.
You're fine. You're fine. And that's why I'm here to answer all of these questions as they come up. The contractor is an experienced contractor that, is, as I understand it, has experience in building these kinds of facilities.
All right, thank you.
Any questions on this resolution R8?
Any questions, team, on the rest of this? Please digest it. John, if you have any, make the board aware of it before we introduce it next week. Charles, good?
I don't have any resolutions, but you've been redundant with this information, and I think the spiel that I heard from you this morning is more cleansing to my mind. So I just want to thank you for how you presented it again. You may not have presented any difference, just the fact that you hear it, but certainly there's a lot of clarity that I've gotten this morning from beginning to where we are now. That really makes it a whole lot more simpler for me. Thank you.
You are most welcome. That's actually a great compliment to give to an attorney, because we're usually accused of making things more complicated. So thank you.
The more often we hear it, the better it is, easier it is to understand. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, let's go on to resolution 9.
Okay, R9. So I want to remind everybody that this resolution relates to the both of the Southfields deals. It relates to the sports park, and I'll explain why in a second, but it also relates to the special taxes. So just a reminder, the town issued bonds to help support the public infrastructure development of the Southfields area. So the town assisted the developer by borrowing money to build roads, utility infrastructure, things like that. And so the developer of Southfields has been hard at work building all of those things. Those things are necessary, for example, for everybody to get to the sports park property. So those bonds are typically repaid from taxes that are only paid by the properties that are in the Southfields district. So the warehouse building that's located in there, portions of those commercial properties, maybe not necessarily the warehouse, but other commercial properties, if they're in the district, they pay part of the taxes. The homes that are being built in this district, they'll have a little piece of those taxes, but those taxes are not paid by the entire town. Those special taxes, and that's actually the word we use, those special taxes are the only source of repayment for those bonds for the Southfields district. So what's happening, however, and this is where the town has agreed to additional support, is once the Sportsplex property is owned by a public entity, whether that's Medco or the town, then according to kind of the rules, that property doesn't have to pay taxes. Well, that's going to really mess up how, what funds are available to pay back those bonds every year. And the town, even though the town is not directly responsible for the repayment of all of those bonds, the town still obviously cares that they get repaid back responsibly, and it wants to make sure that everything goes cleanly. So one thing that the town has agreed is, as part of its budget process every year, the town has agreed to advance the special taxes for the sports park. There's a range of amounts. It's, ranges between 170, the maximum I think could be $300,000. So it's $170,000 to $300,000. It's closer to 170 and typically less than $200,000. The town will advance that. And then when the revenues of the project are sufficient to pay the town, so let's talk about the order. First, it goes to the operations, because if you don't operate a project, you don't have revenues. Then it goes to the debt service to pay back the debt. That's normal. They always like to be in second position. Then it goes down to the town to pay them back, for payments that they may have made, including for these special taxes. So the town is in line pretty much right after debt service to get paid back these special taxes every year. And the pro forma, the projections for the economics, have the town getting paid back those special taxes every year. If there aren't the revenues as expected, the town might be not paid back for all of those amounts, but it is projected that the town will be paid back for those special taxes. The reason that the town is agreeing to advance it, basically lend it to the project, is because for the special tax bonds to get repaid, that money needs to be guaranteed to be there by a certain date that ties into the tax bills. And so that's why the town has agreed to support what is really both the project, the sports parks project, and the Southfields bonds by agreeing to pledge its, general obligation, full faith and credit to advance these funds. And the town, under the pro forma, is expecting to be reimbursed those funds. So that is the contribution agreement. And that is a separate resolution. And that is because it's really pairing up with the initial Southfields bond resolution, because the town's basically said before, look, we're not paying any of this back. It's coming only from the taxes, to now saying the town will pay back this little piece of it, not all of it, but this piece of it, and is expecting to get payback. So that is the contribution agreement, and that is resolution R9.
Kimberly, you did a fantastic job.
Okay, so did we at this point want to talk about the charter, or how we're going to manage those pieces? It's up to you. I know that the town commissioners had elected to kind of proceed with a charter amendment to kind of make things smoother for the town as it's incurring these obligations, or is that for another meeting?
Let's get through this little section.
Okay, great.
And then we'll go to the next hurdle.
Yep. We've got plenty of those, and we are
But we're getting there.
We are getting there. Yes.
Very
So,
good.
that is it. Yes.
We don't need to go into closed session with you, correct?
I don't believe so. It really depended on the questions. And I forgot to note at the beginning of this call that Joe Mason was on call just in case there were any financial questions that the commissioners had, in order to, kind of make sure it had all the information at its fingertips. And then lastly, as you know, I've, been periodically updating the town, with, kind of under legal privilege on these items, and we'll continue to do that as things come up.
Thank you, Kimberly. And I would say, you guys had a question? I would tell you that we'll definitely see you next week.
Great.
Well, you'll see me on Friday, I guess.
Are
Are you gonna be there Friday?
I'm not sure.
Part
I
of
gotta
the
look at my,
bond?
I'm sorry.
Are you gonna be, on the bond call?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yes, I'm
Good.
planning to do that if Davenport thinks I should be there. It's on my schedule, and I just want to wish everybody good luck. The town has a lot of positive things to say, and I will say that in my experience, I have not seen the level of engagement typically as I have seen from both Tamika and Lewis and Michelle on how they've been supporting this. It's a complicated project, and that level of engagement, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. And I was very glad and happy to be working with them because that just makes this a better deal for the town.
So just to let the board aware, this Friday, we've been all going through some practice sessions the last 5 or 6 days on preparing for our presentation to Standard & Poor and Moody's.
Yes.
So we're gonna be doing our bond presentation. I think that the Davenport folks and myself and our team will be in this room, and I want to let the board know if they want to come and sit in the back of the room or sit up here and listen to us, the presentation. It probably wouldn't be a bad thing to listen to see exactly how our presentation is going. But our hope is that when we do the presentation, we'll get a very favorable rating, a bond rating, and it makes it very easy to sell those bonds. Now, saying that, I keep being told that these bonds are already sold, so I don't know. It doesn't really.
Oh, that's Mesereau's job, right? That's why you hire them. They know the people that want to buy these bonds, and as we say, the higher the rating, the lower the interest rate, and
Yes.
that's more money for everybody.
Thank you. Well,
Yes.
I'm sure I'll see you Friday somehow.
Yes, yes, and take care. Any questions that come up, please let me know. If there are not any other questions, I'm happy to just stay silent and go back on mute.
Thank you.
As a final, our last two words are play ball.
Play ball. Thank you, Lou. Okay, we have nothing else on the agenda. Does the board have, Rob, anything?
No, I don't have to.
Yeah, I can bring it up.
So.
Yep,
You wanted to know about the cannabis.
yes.
Money.
Pull that mic towards you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we started to receive the cannabis, funds in June. Let's see, what's it about? Excuse me, February 2024 was the first, EFT we received. It was about a little over $6,000. We're supposed to receive it quarterly. The second time we received it, it was in June 2024. It was for $9,000. And then the third, EFT we received was in August of 24, that was 10,000. So we're receiving between, for just looking at these three EFTs, we received between either $6,000 to $10,000, and we'll receive it quarterly, which means we'll end up receiving about between 60,000 to 100,000 per fiscal year for cannabis money.
Wow.
I just wanted to say that.
Very good. We're gonna wrap up. I wanted to bring up, there was a presentation by the young man from the Boy Scouts about I think, how's the board feel about it? I know I'm fine with it. You guys?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
We're all fine with it.
Okay,
And we
so,
can bring it to an official vote next week during our meeting, but just to let you know if you needed to start moving forward.
yeah, he's going to make a presentation to his scoutmaster, I think today, once we heard from you,
Mhm.
with the approval to move forward with it. So if anything comes up with that, I'll keep you guys posted and let me know next week.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Andy, you had something you wanted to bring to the table?
Yeah, just real quick. I'm sorry, this wasn't on the agenda. Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. I just wanted to let the board know that next Friday, there will be a employee wellness fair. I want to thank Chief because she suggested it at the beginning of the year. Kudos to her to give us the idea. And Danielle taking the ball, working with the broker. So it's going to be on Bow Street, I believe. Danielle just wanted to give a quick blurb about it. It's going to be a lot of fun for the employees and their families. Invite the board and their families to come. So, and she has some flyers here she's gonna send out. There's gonna be also some more communication going out, but I think it's gonna be a really good time.
So we're working with Christiana Cares van to come out with us next, Friday afternoon. It's gonna be 11:30 to 4:30. They're gonna be bringing a lot of the community, groups out there with West Cecil County College, the Judy Center. And it's gonna be our own personal benefit companies too. So it's not only gonna be for the town employees, if anybody passes by, we're gonna be set up next to the green area next to the parking lot. So if people in the community are coming by, they'll be able to touch base at the tables as well for resources within the community. So we're really hoping to get a turnout to have those preventative care measures. So if any of our employees aren't going to get the flu shots or anything like that, Christiana Van's gonna be here to be able to offer those opportunities to get checks or references to different doctors and stuff within the area. So we're gonna have more information from Christiana, hopefully this afternoon with flyers of everybody who's coming. So hopefully it'll be a good afternoon.
Is this flu and COVID or just flu?
They didn't say anything about the COVID shot, so I'm not
Or
sure.
just flu?
Yes, I'm not sure. What resources. Yeah. So we're hoping it'll be a good day and we'll get the community out there and our employees and families out as well.
11:30 to.
4:30.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have an initial flyer there? or you-
Yes, I just have a general flyer, just have a save the date. So this way you'll know what time it is and the families are welcome. And Christiana has to issue the flyer because it's their logo, it's their van, it's helping with the resources. So we're waiting for that official flyer from them with our information on it, so we can get it out to the community.
And there might be a food truck or two out there, and there might, there's some other snacks, things that for anyone who's attending, and possible some giveaways, things like that. So it's gonna be a good time.
Very nice.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say to that? Meeting adjourned.